Hello. Welcome. I am really excited about our conversation today because this is a big one, and it's very eye-opening when I have this conversation with people. And when you start to notice, it becomes very apparent the kind of energy that you're walking into a room with, essentially, right? So if you saw the caption for today's video, it's, I don't need your help. I want some help. And that's a very different energy. So I remember having this conversation years ago with one of my private clients. She and her husband were struggling to kind of see things clearly or be on the same page together. And I remember saying to her, well, do you need your husband? She says, yes, absolutely, I need him. And I said, do you need him or do you want him? Because that's a very different energy. And it kind of stopped her dead in her tracks, and she started to think about it and say, well, I don't know that I need him, but does that make me a bad wife if I don't need him? And I said, absolutely not. I don't need my husband. I don't. I can do everything on my own. Everything. I'm a military wife, pretty self-sufficient. I've spent years doing all of the things with deployments and all of that stuff going on. I don't need my husband. I can do all of those things. But I want my husband. And that is a very, very, very different kind of energy. So I like to kind of equate this, right? Like the neediness, right? If you know anybody who's needy, it's kind of a repelling energy. You're like, oh my God, the needy person's calling, don't pick up the phone. I don't want to talk to that person. Like I equate it to like, what's that movie where it's like the tar monster? I think it's like Hercules or something, a Disney movie from way back in the day where there's like this tar monster, right? That's what I imagine a needy person walking around with, right? Where they like leave this nasty trail of tar behind them and you're like, oh my God, stay away from this needy person, right? I also imagine this child who was just the biggest spoiled little brat in the world, right? Just constantly whining, constantly like on your case. That is the kind of energy that I attribute this neediness to, right? Now, we all have moments where we need something where we just physically can't do it by ourselves. But I'm talking about like the people that walk around in this energy regularly. And what I also want to say is that there isn't a whole lot that we need. Okay, if you think like bare minimum basic survival kind of things, we need two things: air and water. We can sustain ourselves for a pretty long time without food, but air and water, we're not going to last very long without those things. So those like minimal survival things, those are the two things that you really need to survive. Truthfully, honestly, at the bare minimum, right? Everything else is something that we want. Now, when I put this in perspective for this client, it was very eye-opening for not only her, but for me. And I was able to actually look at the language that I was using in my own life. Because I'll be making dinner and I'll say something to my kids like, hey, I need you to empty the dishwasher. I need you to take out the trash. Now, just because it was kind of habitual for me to use that term, it was still coming from a different energy. And so when I want my kids to do something, I'll say, hey, I want you to come empty the dishwasher because I want them to do it. I can do it on my own. I don't need them to. I want them to do it because I want the help, because I don't want to do it all by myself. I don't want to. I can. Totally capable of doing it. Done it for years, right? It doesn't mean that I should continue doing it. So when it comes to these kinds of things, right, I'll have women reach out to me, they'll message me and they'll say, well, I just need more money. That's a different energy than I want more money. But somehow we kind of shame ourselves for this idea of wanting something, right? So I remember, if you're like me, I grew up with parents that said, you don't need that, you want that. It's very different. You don't need it, you want it. It's very different. And so when I ask my kids for their birthday gifts, their Christmas gifts, what do you want? That's what I say to them. Because they don't need anything. My kids do not need anything besides water and air. Everything else is a want. And so I get them used to saying, I want this, I want that. Doesn't make my kids spoiled brats, because I have the ability to say, no, we're not getting that thing. It's not happening, right? I don't always say it. It's usually my husband that says no, right? But it changes the way you even feel about it, right? So if you were to go to the grocery store and you bought all the things that you wanted, that feels very different than going to the grocery store and only buying what you needed. Right? Very different energy. But we stop ourselves because we feel wrong for wanting something. There's absolutely nothing wrong with wanting anything. Nothing wrong at all. But because when we grew up, we heard people say, if you don't need it, you don't have to want it. Right? That's a want, not a need. We're only getting you what you need. When you grow up with that language, it becomes part of your day-to-day. It becomes very habitual to think of what we need versus what we want. And we struggle to spend money on the thing that we want because it's not something that we need. We've already discussed it. There isn't a lot that you need. 2 things boiled down to the bare minimum. 2 things. Everything else is extra. Everything else is a want. And so what I really want you to practice doing is getting used to saying, I want this and I want that. It doesn't make you a spoiled brat to express the fact that you want something. It's totally okay. In fact, I recommend you do it regularly, right? When my kids, my husband, they ask me, okay, what do you want for Christmas? What do you want for Mother's Day? What do you want to do? I'm very honest. What did I get for Christmas this year? I got this gorgeous, beautiful coat. Gorgeous coat. That's what I wanted for Christmas. I managed to find it at an antique store just days before Christmas, right? So my husband lucked out on that one. But I didn't tell him something that I didn't want. I didn't just make something up. Where I was like, At the time when he asked me, there wasn't a whole lot of things that I wanted. It worked out that this gorgeous coat was actually on my desires list. I have a list of things that I desire. And I had a very fancy coat on that list. And it manifested into this beautiful coat that I got at an antique shop. Right? And so it is okay to want things. It is so safe to want things, to desire things, to be at a higher frequency. You just have to get used to it, right? I very rarely will tell the children now that I need something. In fact, it's almost like a visceral reaction when I say the word need, because all I can imagine is like that tar monster or the super whiny kid, right? I don't need anything. I don't need anything. There are a lot of things that I want. And it doesn't make me a spoiled, selfish little brat. Do I expect all of those things today? No. Am I grateful for all the things I have? Absolutely. I get to walk that way, though. We all get to walk that way. You all get to have something that you want, right? I love that grocery store example because, well, everybody faces that, right? When you go to the grocery store. It is so much more freeing to go to the grocery store and get what you want than to go to the grocery store for something that you need, right? Just think of that energy. Feel it the next time you go to the grocery store. Is it something you want or something you need? Very different energy. When you want something, it's way more fun, right? I enjoy going to the grocery store when I go there for something that I want. I hate going to the grocery store when I like ran out of something in the middle of a recipe. Right? I'm annoyed. I'm frustrated. I don't want to go. Right? All right, all. So, just want you to start paying attention to this. Bring it into your awareness. Happy to have a conversation with you about this in more detail if you're interested in it. Please reach out to me. You can find me on all the places, all the things. Happy to share this conversation with you. But I hope you're having a great rest of your day. And as always, be big, be bold, and be opulent. Bye, loves.